The Success in South Florida podcast is brought to you by the team at Rawson Law Firm. If you need DUI or criminal defense representation, call the Rawson Law Firm at 754-206-6200 or check the description of today's episode for more contact information. The Rawson Law Firm, helping good people when bad things happen so they can achieve their best futures.
Welcome to Success in South Florida, featuring interviews with entrepreneurs, leaders, and other movers and shakers across South Florida to find out how they're doing their part to enhance the local community. Your host is Adam Rawson, the founder and CEO of the Rawson Law Firm. Adam's an award-winning attorney, former prosecutor, and a lifelong South Florida resident. He became an attorney because he believes in helping those in need and in crafting lifelong relationships in the community. This podcast is an extension of that mission. Let's get to today's interview. Here's Adam Rawson.
All right, and welcome to the Success in South Florida podcast. I'm your host, Adam Rawson, and today we have Amanda Landry as our guest. Welcome, Amanda. How are you?
Hello, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, of course. Thanks for being on this. So why don't you just tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do?
So I am Amanda Landry, and I am a group practice owner here in South Florida. My group practice is called Caring Therapist, and we provide mental health counseling services in Davie, Fort Lauderdale, Palm Beach Gardens, and Wellington. I am a wife and a mom. And so those two things very much inform me as a business owner. And I am a cat owner too.
Nice. How many cats?
Fun fact. We have two cats. We have a tabby cat, like an orange tabby cat, who's my little buddy. I'm surprised he's not here now trying to get in to this podcast interview. And then we have a hairless sphinx, which everybody's like always so interested. Some people are very scared. Some people are intrigued. And so and his name is Skinner. He is named after a famous psychologist, B.F. Skinner, Bud Skinner, because he doesn't have any hair and has a bunch of skin.
I love it. That's great. So Amanda, you are a licensed therapist and you own a group practice. So how many office locations do you have now?
So we have 5 office locations and about 40 clinicians, ranging from psychologists, mental health counselors, social workers, and marriage and family therapists, and school psychologists.
Wow. So that's amazing. So 5 office locations and 40 clinicians. So you've built your business, right? And you're doing amazingly well. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about how, your journey into this field began?
So, it started in high school, where it began. And I had always wanted to go to law school. That was always my plan. I wanted to be a lawyer. I thought that was really exciting. I thought being a lawyer was going to make me a lot of money. And I was always on the path. I was in the debate team in high school. I was going to, do some sort of like legal studies for my undergrad, but that doesn't really exist. I mean, it does, but it doesn't. And a very common degree that people get is a psychology degree to become a lawyer. So I was like, well, I think I'll do psychology. I was interested in it. And when I got to my first year of college, I was like, I don't think I want to be a lawyer. It was just, I don't know that there was any one thing that happened, but I was like, I don't think this is what I want to do. It was like intuitive. And I really, really enjoyed my psychology classes. I thought they were great. And I decided to switch my path. I didn't really know where that was going to go because you either become like a mental health counselor or you become a psychologist, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I just finished my degree and I took a gap year. They didn't call it that back then, I don't think. I just took a year off of school and people were like shocked that I was like taking, my parents were like, you're going to take a year off. And I was like, yes, I didn't know what I wanted to do. And so sort of in that time, a good friend of mine had started the mental health counseling program and she just loved it and she thought it was so great. And I explored it. And then I decided, yes, this is what I want to do. Wasn't fun. Like I had worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car. People are always very surprised to hear that I worked there. Yeah.
They get all the college graduates, right?
They do. If you have no idea what you want to do and you need to make some money, like in that gap year, they will hire you, especially if you're like a little ambitious or like willing to, like you had to work 50 hours a week. You had to go super early in the morning. You had to work Saturdays. You had to sell insurance to people. It's like, it's a kind of a cutthroat job. And so in some ways it was good because it prepared me for some business aspects. Like I learned a lot, but I definitely knew that was not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. I seriously doubt anybody I worked with still worked for enterprise. They all probably have gone off to, do their own thing. So, I started grad school and I just really loved it. Like I really, really enjoyed it. I really liked it. And when I was in grad school, like, dating myself in 2005, in 2006, I graduated in 2007. Private practice was not something really talked about. It wasn't really that big. Most of the people that I knew, maybe like in private practice, were people who had been in practice for like 20 years, 30 years. They had been in practice forever. It's funny. I think about a psychologist I saw as a kid. He's still in practice, I think, as of today, or very, and it felt like he had been in practice for 20 years back then. And so they never talked about private practice and that would be the past. So I just did what everybody else did as I graduated, and I got an agency job, right? Like they pay you, they give you supervision, they give you some benefits. And I'm like, great, like this sounds fantastic. And so I did that for about 6 years. And I realized, no, this is not fantastic. This is really stressful. This is leading me to a lot of burnout. And that's something that's very common in the mental health world is burnout. People get burnt out really, really quickly in agency jobs because the demands of the paperwork, the demands of the clients, the demands of the agencies, you're in a lot of meetings. You might work 40 hours a week and you might have a caseload. If you have a caseload of, I think I had a caseload of 12. I mean, it wasn't even very high, but you had to run groups. You had to see them individually. There were a lot of meetings. And then you had to write paperwork, massive amounts of paperwork. I mean, when I think about how much paperwork I was writing, I can't even imagine. I had carpal tunnel, like at that time. Okay. I had to wear like gloves because I was, or the wrist guards because you're typing so much. And I knew I was burnt out and I knew I needed to do something different. And I was looking for a job, and a local therapist had put up an ad for, come join my private practice. And I had never thought about it. Never. And so I did. I mean, that's really like, and then the rest is history, right? Like right. I joined, and here I am.
So how long after working at that for the private practice did you say, hey, I'm going to build my own, right? Because what you've built is incredible. You're nationally known. You're known throughout the state, maybe internationally known for what you've been doing, and the mentorship that you provide others and coaching. So when did that click to then say, okay, hey, I see what somebody else, or what people are doing with these private practices, but I'm going to do it for myself and make it better?
It's a great question, because there was actually a pivotal point that happened. About 2 years in, I had gone full-time. So when I started private practice in 2013, I left my full-time job in 2014. So somewhere in 2015, I was doing supervision with a clinician, and she was fantastic. She's actually a very good friend of mine to this day. And she had said, I would love to do this as well. Like, what if I joined you at this practice? Now, it wasn't my practice. And I'm like, exactly like what you said. I was like, I would love to work with this clinician. She's fantastic, but I don't want to do it under somebody else. Like I want to do this on my own. I would love to bring her with me. And that's what I did. I mean, I went and rented an office space, 2-office suite. I had 3 people that I knew, 2 of my supervisees and a friend of mine, a clinician who I'd worked with at the agency who was burnt out. And I rented a space and started caring therapists.
Wow. And so, I mean, that must have been, scary. Or did you have any fears, or was it just all in, emotionally and mentally? How was that to make such a big decision? Because did you have any clients from day one? Did you have a plan to, make some money and at least pay the bills even?
I think at every level of business, there's always fear. Like when you rent your first office, it's like there's fear. When you go to rent your second office, there's fear. When you hire your first person, there's some fear, right? Like there's always that feeling like, is it going to work out? What I have learned over time to kind of work through that fear is to have plans in place and to really do things in a way that is risky, but not overly risky, right? It's always risky to open up your own business. It's always risky to hire people. It's always risky to have this concept in mind, right? But I really try to make sure that when I do things, that I do things with a plan in mind and maybe outside of the box. One thing I could mention is that at that time when I was growing my practice was when a lot of other practices were starting to build. And people were really starting to open up solo practices. This is when Facebook really got big. This is in the sense like there were Facebook groups and people were advertising on Facebook and Instagram was starting and websites were really becoming something that therapists understood they needed. There was Psychology Today. So there was a lot of avenues to start marketing your practice. So I think it allowed for more people to go into the field. Whereas before it was like you called your insurance company, you got somebody, or you had like a friend tell you who they saw and that's who you saw. And that was it.
I completely agree because, it's been very similar with me. And I think lawyers and clinicians and therapists are very similar. We tend to be, conservative. When we go through school, we're hammered home with ethics and our rules. And the answer is always no. I like to joke, but it's really not a joke that, lawyers' favorite word is no. They'll tell you a million different ways that the answer is no, but they'll never tell you how you can get to yes. And so, and actually find a solution. So I think our people just tend to have that fear or live in that extra conservative, mindset. And, what if it doesn't work, right? Well, what if there's a million ways that it will work? And I always say, and look, I remember, moving offices from $300 in rent to $1,300 a month in rent. And I thought the world was going to end, right? And no, we doubled our business. I have those same things. But I always tell myself, fear stands for false events appearing real, right? And just exactly like what you said, trust the plan, the process, calculated or strategic risks. And I've felt, and experienced the exact same things in myself. Now, with what you're doing, you are very entrepreneurial. Were you always like this, or is this something that you've evolved into?
It's an interesting question. I didn't have a lemonade stand as a kid, right? Like it wasn't like that. But was I always ambitious? Yes. I'm always like tell people like I was class president, it's like I had always wanted to do something in whatever circumstance or situation that I was in that was meaningful. And so it just naturally makes sense. Like I think that the group practice and the business is the vehicle to do something meaningful. And so I could have done that meaningfully in an agency and maybe been on their board or something like that. But the business allows me to really have an impact. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And especially in a service-based industry like both of ours, we're able to service so many more clients in the model that we have by hiring clinicians, having accessibility, accepting insurance, and really doing the marketing around all of that. We're able to really help a lot of people in our community. And especially in a time when so many people need mental health services and they need face-to-face mental health services. I mean, I'm a proponent for virtual therapy. I think it's great, but a lot of people in our community also need face-to-face. So I'm really grateful we're able to do that.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that's so, that's so interesting, right? Ambition versus that entrepreneurial, kind of itch as you've continued to grow and, just do things your way, right? And with the mission of helping people, that's amazing. You talked a little bit about the marketing behind, with Facebook groups and Psychology Today. So did you have a specific plan for that, when those things were coming out? And how did you leverage that to grow?
We use a full spectrum plan for marketing. We absolutely use all the directories. We use Google. We're in Facebook groups. We do community-based marketing. We knock on doors. We go to meetings. What we have found is that the number one place that people are finding us is through Google. We've been doing a lot of research on that. We've been collecting a lot of data. And we just found that Google really has allowed businesses to really grow. As much as people maybe hate reviews, right? Like, especially when you get a bad review, the reality is that people read reviews and they read what the owners respond to on reviews. They look at your pictures, they look at your website, they look at the clinicians, they look at the office, and they're drawn to that. And that is something that I absolutely have always had a plan for marketing. I've always tried to be in the curve or ahead of the curve in what, mental health counseling practices can do. There are certain things we can't do. We actually can't ask clients for reviews. We can only ask colleagues and friends. So every once in a while, I'll like text my colleagues. I'll be like, hey, can you write me a review? And I'll write you a review, because we can't get those, talking about ethics, right?
Right.
But I think for businesses in general, making sure they're using Google is really going to help their business grow.
Yeah, we've experienced the same thing, on our end with the law firm. People like the reviews. They look at our pictures. We smile in our pictures. Most lawyers have the arms crossed, looking tough. And no, we smile, and we have a friendly educational website. We're trying to build that know, like, and trust. And I've found that people, they make their decisions based on emotions, and then they try to rationalize that. So if they like you, if they go to your website, if they like you, if they, look at your pictures and go, yeah, I feel comfortable, this is a safe place, they're going to make that decision. And then they're going to, look, and then they're going to say, well, the reviews help and this help, right? So you definitely want to hit those emotional cues. And that's, when you're out there on social media and Google and everything, it really does help attract more clients. So it's great that you have that business savvy and the marketing savvy, that and understand how that works. And Amanda, I know you've built a Facebook group, right, called My Private Practice Collective. How many members are in the group now?
I think there's about 19,000 members, which is wild to me. Like, it's even still, like, I can't believe it. That group has been open about 6 years. And it really started as it actually started as a marketing group. We did like a 30-day marketing challenge with therapists. And at the end of the 30-day marketing challenge, I asked, what do we want to do with this group? And everybody in the group had said, let's keep it open and let's, use it to collaborate with each other. And again, this is when Facebook groups started and they started to get big, and people started to use them to build their practices and share information. And it just took off. I mean, people ask, like, did you do something specific? This I didn't have a plan for. I'll be very honest and transparent. It wasn't like I was going in every day and adding the people and sharing in this and that. It organically happened. And I think part of it is that I was very active in the group, did share a lot in the group, provided a lot of material. But I also think it was like right place, right time, where clinicians really wanted to connect and they wanted to be a part of something. And so being a part of the Facebook group was very meaningful to them. And to this day, I mean, there's at least 100 posts every single day. I mean, there's so much information that's going in and out of that group at any given time. It is just, for me, it's again another way to give back to the community and to really connect with other clinicians and really be helpful to our profession.
Right. And you're the thought leader for a group with 19,000 people. So that's extraordinary what you've done, whether, right. And some of the best things that I've done, there was no specific plan. It was just, let's try it. Let's have fun with this. And then something happened. So it's really amazing to hear that that's, what happened with this. But it's really helped give you an additional platform to be that thought leader for so many people. And I'm sure you have a lot of people, whether they tell you or not, that look up to you from, your positioning within the group and the advice and counsel that you give. I wonder, have you thought about doing any specific coaching or anything spinning off from that, or have you used it for that?
So we do use it for coaching other private practice owners. And I do consulting. I do consulting with Rachel Needle. She's another group practice owner in this area. And we will do consulting specifically really lately it's been for a lot of group practice owners. A lot of people are really interested in opening up group practices, especially because the demand is there. And there are a lot of intricacies with opening up a group practice that you really need coaching. I got plenty of coaching from people in opening my group practice. I didn't just open it up and put it all together. I worked with a couple people actually at various stages of my business in order to either give me the push I needed, like, hey, you should probably do this, or the very practical feedback and advice about, how to structure vacation time for employees, how to pay employees, how to pay contractors. how to put certain systems in place, what to include in meetings, just all of that very practical advice. We now provide that practical advice to people looking to grow their practices, solo and group, but a big focus has been on group practices lately.
And I know Rachel, and she's great too. But that's a huge need, because most clinicians didn't go to business school. They don't know how to actually run a business, how to comply with labor and employment laws, right? Decisions, do we give health insurance? Do we not? Are they, a W-2? Are they a 1099 employee, right? All these different things that are the not fun parts, or the not sexy parts of starting your own business, right? The marketing's fun, seeing clients, being a great technician, all those things are great, and what people are classically trained for. Well, the therapy services, but going, well, how do I actually make this work? So it's really amazing that you're providing an opportunity for people to get coaching from someone like you who really knows what they're doing. And Rachel's great as well. So I love that. Amanda, what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we will be right back. And we're going to hear a word from our sponsor, the Rawson Law Firm.
When something bad happens, who do you turn to? In South Florida, the answer is the Rawson Law Firm, criminal and DUI defense for when bad things happen to good people. The Rawson Law Firm is a team of 6 award-winning criminal defense attorneys, including 2 board-certified criminal trial experts. They also have federal and white-collar divisions in the practice. Every day, the team's mission is simple: to help when bad things happen to good people so they can achieve their best future. To learn more about the team and how they can help you, connect on Facebook and Instagram at Rawson Law Firm. You'll also find helpful and entertaining videos on Rawson Law Firm YouTube channel. Just check this episode's description for all the ways you can connect.
Back on the Success in South Florida podcast with Amanda Landry. Now, Amanda, you are a mother, you are a clinician, you are a business owner, you are a wife. And, you have a lot of things going on, especially with, having a little one in the house. And so how do you balance it all?
Great question. Some days I feel like I've got it covered, and some days I'm like, this is not a balance. This is an imbalance, right? This is not working. And so what I have learned to do is to really prioritize, like, what is the most important need in the moment. So I can share, I had never planned on not returning to see clients. I took a 4-month maternity leave. That kind of, the timing worked out good, because when I had my son, I would have returned like after a typical maternity leave, like in July. And that's not a great time for therapists. It's a very slow time. So I was like, I'll take the extra month. I'll return in August. And 2 things happened at once that kind of collided together. Is I started to feel inside that I was not ready to go back to work. I just wasn't ready. It's not even go back to work, because I absolutely went back to work. I wasn't ready to go back to seeing clients. I was just not there. I think being a first-time mom, and my son went through a really major sleep regression at 4 months. He was not sleeping really at all. And at the same time, our business basically doubled. And we had promoted a clinical director. We had promoted site supervisors. We had added another location. We were going to look at expanding, and we really started to grow, and we really started to get a lot of calls, and the business really took a big turn in a positive way. And I realized that this business was no longer something I could do when I didn't see clients. And that's how it was before. I saw my clients, I saw a full caseload, and on Fridays in between sessions, I kind of did what I needed to do. And it was like, no big deal. I knew that was not going to be the case anymore. In fact, I was going to have to put a lot of energy into this business and promote people, give people bigger roles, and hire, right? And so we did all of that. And the business now it takes a massive priority. And not that my clients weren't a big priority to me. It was just because the business got so big and the needs got so big that I wasn't able to service individual people. I mean, that's really what it came down to. And I know you're a parent, so you know this, but even though my son is tiny, still tiny, he's going to be 2 in April, that when he has a need, it's even bigger than anything else. And so we went through nannies. We went, then I went through, I would work when my husband got home, or I would, utilize my in-laws who live kind of far away. And we just kind of made it work for a long period of time. And then I was like, we have to put him in daycare. It was a choice that we made. A lot of parents make that choice because I needed to work. And so had this grand plan that he would go to daycare and I would prioritize the business and myself and all of these things. And if for anybody out there who has put their child in daycare, thinking about putting their child in daycare, they get sick. And everybody warned me. So I knew that it was going to happen, but I was not prepared for how often and then how much my husband and I would get sick. And then he would be out of school for 9 days. Yeah, it's like, it wasn't even that he was sick, because that's not fun for anybody, but it's then they're out of school for a long period of time. And he got very sick a few times. And so the priority completely shifted. I would still absolutely do the things I needed to do in my business, but it would be around his naps. It would be on the weekends when my husband was home. It would be at night. It wasn't 9 to 5. I mean, that just is what happened. And so for me, it was just what needed my attention in this moment, right? Was my son at school? The business needed some attention. Okay, then I did that. Did the house need attention? Did I need attention? Did my husband need attention? Did our cats need attention? Like, you just have to constantly shift those plates. It can't be static. It has to be dynamic. And luckily within the business, we have like a chief clinical, manager. We have a senior clinical director, 2 clinical directors, and 3 admins, somebody doing operations, somebody doing billing and credentialing, and then like an admin person. So I have a lot of support in the business, but the business requires that too. So it's interesting how that all has evolved as I've evolved and as the business has evolved.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. And with my firm, we've been going through the same thing. So, I'm really seeing 2 different things with this story. The first thing I'm seeing is that prior to your son being born, you did a really good job to build a business that, first of all, allowed you to take off 4 months. Because imagine if you were just a solo clinician, how much time could you really take off? Well, you could, but then there would be no income coming in. So the fact that you already had a business set up with people and procedures, where you didn't have to see clients for 4 months, but the business kept running is amazing. And probably something that doesn't happen quite often in that world of, solo clinician or even, solo attorney, right? It's very difficult if you're a solo, whether it's an accountant, a lawyer, a dentist even, and you don't have a lot of employees to be able to just say, I'm taking off, especially when you're the only one in production, right? So you weren't the only one in production, meaning seeing clients. And then as that's grown for you, and as you decided to scale the business, realizing that in order for the business to truly scale and be, consistent with your mission of helping more people, you needed to actually step completely out of production, not see clients anymore, and then build that amazing team, right? Because I'm sure you couldn't do it without the amazing team that you had and all these people that you said you've promoted from within, you've hired from outside, and you've really given them a lot of the roles that you previously, had. Maybe you might have had 15 different roles you were doing, and I'm sure they've done an amazing job with it. So, I see that myself in our firm as we've grown, being able to scale, just needing to build, an all-star amazing team, and really for the goals of being able to have a happy life, right? And have it all. Because you do have a lot of other duties. You want to be a good mother, you want to be a good wife. You want to, obviously, what about yourself, right? Everybody needs personal time and time for just, self-care. So it's really amazing what you've done in both of those fields. Because, when my son was born, when my oldest son was born in 2019, I took a week and a half off and went right back to work and run into the courthouse, running around, and it was too soon. It was way too soon. And now my second son, 3.5 years later, was born, and I'm basically out of production. I don't go to court much. I do a lot of other things, but I can work a little from home. I can go into the office. It's a much easier schedule. And now we have a much larger team. So it's great that you've been able to do that. And what advice do you have for anybody who's, preparing for these major life change? Maybe somebody who's saying, yes, I'm going to have a child soon, but I am a solo clinician. And how can I build something that can allow me to, have it all?
Yeah, I think and there's two kind of like pieces of advice is even for my own maternity leave, like I saved up for that maternity leave. Like it wasn't, like I still saved up. I still took a portion of my income. Again, you say we're always conservative and, risk averse in what we do. And so a lot of the times for therapists, if you're having a major life change, it goes to like, you have to save up and you have to be prepared for these things. And because you don't want to get to a situation where you're thinking, okay, I have a group practice now and they're going to sustain my life. And I'm just going to like set off and then people leave. And then I've seen it time and time again with different people. People leave, the structure changes, they lose a payer and they're scrambling. For me, I always know that if push came to shove, I would absolutely go back to seeing clients if I needed to. Like I have that safety net and I would be happy to do it, like given certain circumstances. I know that is always there for me. So I think that gives me a little bit of peace of mind in building the business and knowing that, yes, while I'm not in production, like you said, at the same time, I know if I needed to, I could go there. I think the other thing is when I built my business, it was never like with in mind of like, okay, I'm going to build this and so I can go on maternity leave, for instance, or so I could not see clients. It was really like authentic in the purpose and the mission. And like, let's do this to help people. I want to work with like other clinicians that I love, that are amazing, that bring a lot of value. And then the other pieces all came together, right? Like it was like, okay, now we can really be supportive of other people going on maternity leave. We can really be supportive of moms in the way that we run our business, or dads or parents. And we can really have this business that is connected. Like that's really, community and connection is really important to me. And so those ingredients came together, then that allowed for me to run the business in a different way and for me to have a different role in the business. And even our clinical directors like don't see a full caseload, and they're having the ability to work from home and to do different things. All of our clinicians have some ability to work from home. So that's kind of a good thing as well. I really think work-life balance is important. And some of our clinicians are super ambitious and want to make a lot of money and work a lot. Like that's on them too, So I know for me, it was never like, I never started out even like, hey, let me build this massive group practice. It organically happened. Same like the Facebook group in some ways. Now I'm a little bit more like, yes, let's build this group practice. Let's add locations. Let's make this into something really grand. But initially it was this yearning inside of me that said like, let me make an impact in my world or in this world.
There's so many parallels with the way that you built your business and the way that we built, that I built mine. So I just love hearing the story. Because again, you evolve and you say, wait a minute, oh, I actually did this. Now I can do something even bigger and help more people. And just, it's amazing. So what advice would you have for young clinicians who are just, getting started and want to, make an impact in the world and, either start a business or just, get into the field?
So I would say it's a great field to get into. I think you have to manage your expectations about what that really looks like, because you have to go to school. You have to have an internship. You have to get licensed. You have to do your CEUs. You have to work. You usually work for somebody, whether that's an agency or another private practice. And so for anybody really wanting to be in private practice in the long run or have a group practice, is to work on your clinical skills first and foremost. Like if you're a good clinician, people will continue to come back to you. If you have a good reputation, you will continue to build that. And once you have that solid foundation, then move into the business side of things and read books, pay coaches and consultants, listen to podcasts, go to seminars, go to workshops, meet with accountants, do the business-minded things, and don't be afraid of that if that's what you want to do, because you have to spend money, and if you're building something big. And I think that was something that was really new for me as we got bigger, is like, instead of spending $50 on things or $100 on things, we're spending thousands or sometimes things cost $10,000.
Yep.
Like, and I'm like, I can't even like fathom that this amount of money is going out for certain things. But really learning to be comfortable with that was something I had to work on. I didn't come from a family with a lot of money necessarily. And so sometimes I have to work through that mentality, and I have to open myself up to abundance and open myself up to not being too scared around money, which has been a big part of my journey as well. Because when you write checks for $4,000 for like a 1-day like consulting, event, I'm like, I'm like, man, my first car didn't even cost this much money, things like that. Yep. Like, the comparison game comes up with like what this money means. So because
and you throw on another zero or two.
Exactly. Throw on another zero.
A little bit of that fear.
This is like how much this like to open up another location costs, or how much it's going to cost to hire, or an admin. Right.
And I've always found that, as long as I have the mindset of strategic risk and that an investment versus a cost, it gets me through it. Being able to say, okay, well, this is going to help because it's going to lead to X, Y, and Z, or our goals. So really that investment versus cost mindset has helped me personally, because there's so many parallels. Even what you're just saying about this, it's just like, it could be a little scary, but when you feel confident and you have the right team and the right business plan, you just push forward and you kind of trust the process and trust yourself. I've learned a lot, to really trust myself with this. So Amanda, what's your definition of success?
Yeah, I think that varies day to day too. It's like one day I'm like, man, this group practice, we have 5 locations and it's like really doing really great. And then the next day, like my house is completely upside down. There's dishes everywhere. Like, none of the laundry is done. And I'm like, am I the same person who like runs this business? Right. So I think in my various roles, it really looks different. I think that we each have to define what our own success is. I think success can be celebrated at all levels. Like I felt really excited. I will never forget the first client I booked. I remember that phone call. I remember I was sitting. And that was the definition of success, like at that time, right? Like last week, I think we hit like our highest ever that we had booked for intakes. It was like, I don't know exactly the number, but like 100 or something. And it was like, I can't even believe it. And that feels like, a major success. So for me, success isn't just one thing. It can be all the things that happen that are exciting.
It's amazing. Love to hear it. And so what are the next steps for you and Caring Therapist? Do you have any big plans coming up?
So we are going to be expanding into the Pembroke Pines area. We're in the preliminary research phases of looking for space. I started off in Pembroke Pines. I lived in Pembroke Pines for a long time as a child and teenager, and into some of my adulthood as well. It's a great market and it's an underserved market. We don't try to go into areas that like everybody's in. We really try to go into areas where there's a lot of people, not as many therapists. And that has been a really successful strategy for us. And Pembroke Pines is one of those areas. There's a lot of people. So we're going to be expanding there in the next couple of months. And then we do have an expansion plan to grow by 1 to 2 locations a year, and just to continue to serve the community and really be able to provide that like amazing experience for the clients that we work with, but also the clinicians. Like I want my clinicians to feel connected and happy and worthwhile working at our practice as well.
Yeah, that's great. Pembroke Pines is the second largest city in Broward County by people. So it's a great area. It's a great market. A lot of people, and yeah, I'm sure, your strategy has proven to work over years and years. So you're doing a great job. So I'm very excited to see what Caring Therapist has in the future. I mean, just, 5 locations now is amazing. And 1 to 2 a year. Wow. You're going to be everywhere pretty soon. I love it. So Amanda, where can people find you? if anybody wants to either get in touch, say hi, talk to you about consulting, or if somebody has a need for a therapist, where should they, reach out?
So the easiest place is our website, which is caringtherapistofbroward.com. My email is amanda@caringtherapistofbroward.com. And then if anybody's listening to this that's a therapist, you can join us on Facebook at My Private Practice Collective. And that's where you can find out about consulting, about how to build a group practice or a solo practice, and really connect with other clinicians.
Oh, perfect. Well, that's great. And this has been great. Thank you so much, Amanda, for being here, spending your time and just giving us all of that great, valuable information, knowledge, and wisdom that you have. It's been a pleasure, and hopefully we can do this again sometime soon.
Thanks so much for having me. It was so great.